Are flatliners really conscious after death? Driven by ambition and curiosity to learn what lies on the other side of death, 5 medical students deliberately stopped their hearts in order to experience the afterlife in the new thriller Flatliners, Sony Pictures, which opened in U.S. theaters on September 29. They quickly discover that there are unexpected and terrible consequences of dallying with death, but not everything they experience after dying is in the realm of science fiction. A growing body of research is charting the processes that occur after death, suggesting that human consciousness doesn't immediately wink out after the heart stops, experts say. But what really happens in the body and brain in the moments after cardiac arrest? The Science of Death, 10 Tales from the Crypt and Beyond. The terms cardiac arrest and heart attack are frequently used interchangeably, but they are not identical conditions, according to the American Heart Association, AHA. During a heart attack, a blocked artery prevents blood from reaching a portion of the heart, which can cause that section to die, though the heart continues to beat, the AHA explained. During cardiac arrest, the electrical signals driving the heart's pumping action are disrupted, the heart ceases beating and death shortly follows, the AHA said. In the vast majority of terminal cases, physicians medically define death based on when the heart no longer beats, said Dr. Samparnia, Director of Critical Care and Resuscitation Research at New Langone School of Medicine in New York City. Technically speaking, that's how you get the time of death, it's all based on the moment when the heart stops, he told Live Science. Once that happens, blood no longer circulates to the brain, which means brain function halts almost instantaneously, Parnu said. You lose all your brainstem reflexes, your gag reflex, your pupil reflex, all that is gone. A trajectory of cell death, the brain's cerebral cortex, the so-called thinking part of the brain, also slows down instantly, and flatlines, meaning that no brain waves are visible on an electric monitor, within 2 to 20 seconds. This initiates a chain reaction of cellular processes that eventually result in the death of brain cells, but that can take hours after the heart has stopped, Parnu said. Performing cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, does send some blood to the brain, about 15% of what it requires to function normally, according to Parnia. This is enough to slow the brain cell's death trajectory, but it isn't enough to kickstart the brain into working again, which is why reflexes don't resume during CPR, he said. If you manage to restart the heart, which is what CPR attempts to do, you'll gradually start to get the brain functioning again. The longer you're doing CPR, those brain cell death pathways are still happening, they're just happening at a slightly slower rate, he told Live Science. Recent studies have shown that animals experience a surge in brain activity in the minutes after death. And people in the first phase of death may still experience some form of consciousness, Parnu said. Substantial anecdotal evidence reveals that people whose hearts stopped and then restarted were able to describe accurate, verified accounts of what was going on around them, he added. They'll describe watching doctors and nurses working, they'll describe having awareness of full conversations, of visual things that were going on, that would otherwise not be known to them, he explained. According to Parnia, these recollections were then verified by medical and nursing staff who were present at the time and were stunned to hear that their patients, who were technically dead, could remember all those details. Heart of the matter, 7 things to know about your ticker, death and beyond. Parnia and his colleagues are currently investigating the pervasiveness of consciousness after death. They're looking at large numbers of people in Europe and the United States who have suffered cardiac arrest, in the largest study of its kind, he said. In the same way that a group of researchers might be studying the qualitative nature of the human experience of love, for instance, we're trying to understand the exact features that people experience when they go through death, because we understand that this is going to reflect the universal experience we're all going to have when we die, he said. The study researchers are also observing the brain in detail during the period of cardiac arrest, death and revival to understand how much oxygen is reaching the brain, when exactly the cortex comes back online and how these experiences relate to brain activity itself, Parnia added. For these scientists, The most important next steps are finding more accurate methods of monitoring the brain from beyond the threshold of death and improving the quality of resuscitation, to do a better job of preventing brain injuries while restarting the heart, Parnu said. At the same time, we also study the human mind and consciousness in the context of death, to understand whether consciousness becomes annihilated or whether it continues after you've died for some period of time, and how that relates to what's happening inside the brain in real time, Parnu said. The Flatliners movie also suggests that death and resuscitation could enhance normal brain activity after revival, as the students who died and woke up can suddenly remember obscure passages in long-forgotten books. However, in the real world, a return ticket from death doesn't include newly acquired cerebral superpowers, though it does frequently provide a new perspective on life, Parnu noted. What tends to happen is that people who've had these very profound experiences may come back positively transformed, they become more altruistic, more engaged with helping others. They find a new meaning to life having had an encounter with death, Parnu said. But there isn't like a sudden magical enhancement of their memories, he added. That's just Hollywood jazz.